and decorate the stage. Dr. Shomit Guho, who is the convener of the conference, and he's also professor of JU. Sir, please come on the dais. Then we'll first felicitate our guests. Is there anyone? Professor Vivekananda Paiji, who is the chief guest of this event. So, I'd like to call Professor Anandatta to felicitate Sri Paiji. And then felicitation of Professor Tapas Chakraborty. I'd like to call Dr. Shomit Guho, convener of this conference, to kindly felicitate Professor Chakraborty. Our guest of honor, another guest of honor, Dr. Arun Bandapadhyay, Director of IACB. I'd like to call Prasan Datta again, sorry, sir, to give you again to felicitate Dr. Bandapadhyay. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call KDM Rao, who is scientist here in IACS, to felicitate Professor Datta, Professor N. Datta. I'd like to call Dr. Praveen Kumar, Assistant Professor in IACS, to felicitate Dr. Shomit Guho, convener of the conference. Thank you very much, Praveen. Thank you very much. I now like to call Professor Datta, Ayan Datta, to give the welcome address and introduction about the conference. We are really eager to know about the conference events. So he's going to explain all in a very short speech. Thank you, sir. Please come.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. And you should not interpret it is that one Datta is helping another Datta, okay? So, so first of all, again, as I said, thank you, Dr. Anuja Datta, for this kind invitation. So, it's my proud privilege to welcome you all as the Secretary of the Vivekananda Vigyan Mission to IACS, the cradle of nationalist science movement of India. This event is being co-hosted by Vivekananda Vigyan Mission, Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, the Ministry of Culture, and NIH. And we thank you all profusely for coming and making time here. This event is being organized to celebrate the life and work of Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, who envisioned the first research institute of Asia to be run by Indians, for Indians, and from Indian wisdom. Okay. We have several invited lectures and plenary lectures. We have a special lecture by Dr. Sumati Rao, University of Texas at Dallas, who is a distinguished Indologist and a scholar on Mahendralal Sarkar. We have special lectures by scholars, leading scholars of Bengal, like Professor Joy Sen from IIT Kharagpur and Dr. Jishnu Basu from the Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics. We have poster quiz and a host of other activities to keep the students aware of the great contribution of this place. We must also keep in mind that when British came to India, UK was neither very rich, neither advanced scientifically, technologically, or even economically. But they soon figured out that to control this vast land, a country like India, they needed to create divisions, and divisions in its soul. And how did they achieve this? And they achieved this by introducing the concept of what we call as brown sahibs. So the new intellectuals educated by the Macaulay movement or Macaulay model of education started to produce the real separation of the Indian soul, which is the difference between the so-called English educated intelligentsia and the so-called Bengali or state vernacular languages. This effect has been long lasting, and it has been really long lasting, so much so that an Indian born in India has to read and write a book like The Discovery of India to gain credibility as a person of intellect. Bharat as a civilization eventually has moved out of it, and now we see that new American scholars like Thomas Friedman writing books like The World is Flat, where they talk about India as a lighthouse of security and freedom and democracy to the whole of planet. So we wish you a very stimulating and intellectually exciting 2 days ahead. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata ki Jai.
Thank you, Professor Datta. And now, since IACS is the host institute, and we are really thankful to IACS for hosting this very, hopefully, very successful international conference, I'd like to call Professor Taposh Chakraborty, Director of IACS, to deliver his speech by wishing for the conference.
Thank you, Anuja. So, Adaraniya Sri Vivekananda Paiji, National Secretary, Vigyan Bharati, Dr. Varun Bandyopadhyay, Director, IICB Kolkata, Professor Sumit Guha, Convener of this conference, my colleagues at IACS, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Namaskar and good morning. I'm glad that Vigyan Bharati has taken initiative to celebrate the 189th birth centenary of Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar, the founder of this organization, Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, which was founded officially in the year 1876. And we are happy to host it here. In broader societal role, Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar is remembered as the founder of Indian Science Association in the 19th century and the pioneer of the national science movement of the country. And he is the promoter of homeopathy research and education in India. This organization, IACS, is actually the symbol of his lifelong endeavor. In the first half of the last century, this organization produced a galaxy of scientists who built the foundations of the different disciplines in this country. IACS was the workplace not only of Sir C.V. Raman, but also of this notable astrophysicist Meghnad Saha, co-discoverer of the Raman effect, K.S. Krishnan, Satyendranath Bose, eminent crystallographer Kedareshwar Banerjee, chemists like Priyadaranjan Ray, and many others. In the words of Sir C.V. Raman, he remembered Mahendralal's contribution with the following words: I have always felt that IACS is my prime home. Dr. Sarkar has sown the seed, and it has fallen on my part to reap the harvest. This is what Raman said much before he was awarded with this Nobel Prize. Now, as we celebrate here the contributions of this Mahendralal Sarkar, I think it is our solemn responsibility to remember another missionary of science in India, Raja Ram Mohan Rai. He is the great social reformer and founder of this Brahmo Sabha in India in the year 1928. And he actually heralded the science education in this colonial India. It was he who first emphasized that Western sciences were the desiderata for the country's material development. In a letter in the year 1823, that time this Governor General of India, he wrote and made an appeal to promote a more liberal and enlightened system of instructions embracing mathematics, natural philosophy, chemistry, astronomy, with the other useful sciences. Rammohan died in the year 1833, and in the same year, the Mahendralal was born, as if to bear the torch that Rammohan lit. Raja Rammohan Rai is the first person to outline what is called this first national outlook on the sciences. However, he left the job on the British government and did not try to institutionalize it. he was committed more to social and these religious reformations. Mahendralal was the person who first, he is the personifications of this natural science, national science in India. Since 1869, Mahendralal began broaching the project of this public for this project of this Indian Science Association through public lectures, pamphlets, and writing to these editors of this Hindu Patriot and many other addresses. So in the next 2 days, we will see these contributions of this Mahendralal Sarkar, and it will be discussed by this eminent, the professionals who are in the field. And I wish the success of this today's meeting. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wishes. And whatever happens in IACS, we can never forget our neighboring institute, IICB. And now we are lucky that Dr. Arun Bandyopadhyay is with us, the director of IICB. I'd like to call Dr. Arun Bandyopadhyay to wish for the conference. Please, sir.
Sri Vivekananda Pai, National Secretary, Vigyan Bharati, Professor Tapas Chakravarti, Director, IACS, Professor Ayan Datta, Secretary, Vivekananda Vigyan Mission, Professor Sumit Go, convener of this conference, many friends, my seniors, Potakeda is here, my friends, Dr. Arindam Banerjee is here, faculties, students, guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here on the occasion of International Conference on Life and Works of Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar. I'm really privileged to be here to say something about this conference, to address this conference, because Mahendralal Sarkar was an institution, and is an institution. He built an institution, and philosophy, ideology, we still were trying to follow. During those days, many visionaries created many institutions, like Mahendralal Sarkar created IACS. In case of IICB, Dr. J.C. Ray, he was a clinician, he created IICB in 1935. So those people actually, the people who are the patriot, who fought for the freedom of Indian, freedom to do research, freedom to do science, to freedom to study. It is very interesting that those people are very successful. They created many path-breaking discoveries, many visionaries. They created many visionaries. But it is very unfortunate that we still are in the colonial mentality. So I will just I express my concern regarding two things which Vigyan Bharati should address. They are addressing. They are very efficient in connecting people to the especially to the grassroots level through science mission. That is very appreciable, and I am associated with this activity for a long time. But we are still concerned for two things. Number one, we are too much dependent on the foreigners for import of many instruments, chemicals, biologicals to the foreign country, and we are exporting this. We are importing this instead of exporting, which the two souls means Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar and C.V. Raman, both of them, they are born in this month. Their two souls are still surprised that still these people are dependent on them, the Western society, for these equipments. The equipments they built in their own lab, we are still buying from foreign resources. We are unable to create. So there is a huge, there is a problem not in the talent, problem not in the expertise. Those are available in India. People are very intelligent, but the problem in the leadership. It is the leadership problem. That's why we are still in the colonial mentality that we buy all these things from them. We don't trust. The credibility of our system is not there. That's why even if Indian people make, we don't buy. We are very skeptical about their things. We are facing every day in our lab, every day in all institutes. So not this is about the R&D instruments, but this same thing is applicable for the consumer goods and many things. So many of you have every one of you have the equipments which is made in foreign country. So recently, this is also movement of this present government under Atmanirbhar Bharat, so that we become self-reliant. So we promote all these things. We are promoting in our research level everywhere. I'll just tell you one story that regarding the Raman spectroscopy. The C.B. Raman got Nobel Prize for Raman spectroscopy for discovery Raman spectroscopy. But prepared his own instruments, as J.C. Bose is prepared his own instrument there, and people are using now made in foreign country. So several years, 100 years, people use all those instruments. Recently, CSIR, one institute, CSIR was given the job to prepare the instrument under NMITLA project. One of the laboratories, CSIR, is CSIR Ampri Bhopal. So they prepared the instruments. So very recently, because of the COVID, when Prime Minister of India restricted the purchase of foreign items, we are told to first buy from India, do some, but most of our instruments from made in USA or Western society. So once the import restriction was imposed, then people are very much concerned that how can you do the research. Then the procedure was introduced that we have to first ask for the domestic tender and they go for the global tender. So one of our scientists, Dr. Nukul Maiti, is a very good biophysicist. He wanted to buy Raman spectroscopy. So they floated the tender, we floated the tender, and the one domestic company applied. And he came to me that one domestic company, so I cannot go to foreign country. So this is very bad things. I said, okay, let's see who is this. Because somebody applied, he has the instrument. Then when he inquired more detail, and we found that this is made in CSIR lab, and one CSIR scientist made it, and it is actually technology is transferred to this company made placed in Jaipur. So, and then after a lot of activities, a lot of process and procedure, we purchased the instrument. This instrument is just reached here 2 days back. It will be installed very soon. And then many institutes, IITs, NIT, they are calling me that they are also buying this instrument. How is it working? I said, I cannot tell unless it is working and it's installed. So, but people are buying this. So that is the thing. So this is now we have to trust the system, support these people. At least if you have 70% efficiency, 80% efficiency, it is better to buy from India because we are paying the person who is made in Indian people, not foreigners. So let's see. So once I was discussing just 3 months back with our Dr. Janji. Janji was here in Johnson Subudhi was in ISCB Kolkata, Salt Lake campus. I told him, but he said one thing that see, the ICS and cultivation, they share the common wall, and it took 100 years to cross the wall. So that is very interesting, but I said at least it crossed. So these are the things which you have to promote as a scientist. But from the beginning party, they have to now connect more and more rural people for the science. See, government is also concerned, many policymakers are concerned that the fruit of the science, it is to the very 3-4% of the higher strata, elite class, still elite class. But the large number of the people living in the rural area, they are devoid of science education. See, whenever there is a person who is getting chance in engineering or IIT, farmer's son, it's a news. That means they are not supposed to get. It's a news. But so many people are getting chance from cities, it's not news. So very, very few people are getting the fruit of science and higher education in India. So it is the duty of the Vigyan Bharati and our duty also to connect more and more people to promote science education in the rural sector. I wish this international conference on life and works of Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar will be fruitful only if we can implement all these things in near future. I hope this conference will be a great success and a great discussion. I congratulate the IACS Kolkata and Vigyan Bharati for conducting this conference. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. And that was very inspiring a wish for all of us. And now what we are eagerly waiting for is our inaugural address by Chief Guest, Sri Vivekananda Paiji, who is also National Secretary of Vigyan Bharati. And since it will take more than 30 minutes probably to give his introduction, but to be very short, By education, he is an architect from College of Engineering, Trivandrum, and despite of its high-profile career, apart from his high-profile career, he is also National Secretary of BIVA for last 10 years and main coordinator of World Ocean Science Congress. So, welcome, sir. Please.
Respected Director of IACS, Professor Tapas Chakravarti ji, and respected Director of IACB, the neighbor of IACS, Dr. Arun Bandopadhyaya ji, Professor Sumit Guha ji, who is the convener of International Conference on Life and Works of Mahendralal Sarkar, my dear friend Ayan Datta ji, so many dignitaries, students, and other karyakartas and well-wishers of Vivekananda Vigyan Mission who are present in this hall, and other members of IACS who are also present here, some of whom are also present here. On the 2nd of November this year, we celebrated the 189th birth anniversary of Mahendralal Sarkar. And that day, this celebration started. And today, on the 7th of November, which happens to be the 134th birth anniversary of Chandrasekhara Venkit Raman, about whom Tapasda and mentioned. On this day, we are carrying on that celebration. In a way, the greatest tribute to Mahendralal Sarkar and an everlasting tribute was paid by none other than Chandrasekhara Venkit Raman, because he actually implemented the vision for which, as Ayan Dattaji mentioned, this institution was established. To do science by Indians for Indians. Even today on the website of IACS, there is this word, solely native, purely national. And we have to remember the context in which this institution was established. In 1757, by the Plassey War, the Bengal presidency was taken over by the British. And British, at the height of their rule in India, were probably less than 50,000 of British who were here. And at that point of time, our population was around 30 crores. So how the 50,000 British physically present at a time and date when the means of communication were not as evolved as today, when the means of transportation were not as evolved as today, how they ruled over this vast subcontinent, what we make. Actually, it is almost like a continent. And the most powerful tool with which the British ruled over India was science. Rajesh Kochar, who passed away during the COVID, he has actually brought out a paper on science as a tool for colonial dominance. I'm not exactly that heading, maybe slightly different, but that is the spirit of that paper. In 1757, Bengal presidency was captured. Within 10 years, in 1767, the Survey of India was established by the British. Please note, it was not the survey of Bengal. They had political ownership only on Bengal at that point of time. But they established Survey of India. So they had the intention to rule over India, and they needed the information regarding the other portions of India. So they established the Survey of India. Even today on the website of Survey of India, we can see that the first institution of modern science in India is Survey of India. But then what they established? Then they came out with the Zoological Survey of India, Botanical Survey of India, Archaeological Survey of India, Geological Survey of India. Do you just see the whole scientific spectrum that they established in India was intended towards resource mapping? And what was the role of Indians, the educated Indians, in those scientific establishments? They wanted them subservient to the British. They didn't want them to do their intellectual work, original thought. No. And what are the examples? One of the greatest example is that of Pramathanath Bose. Pramathanath Bose, he was the number 2 in the Geological Survey of India. In a way, he prepared the first geological map of our country. But when his turn came to be the director, that I don't remember his name, that then director, he brought in T.H. Holland, who was around 10 years junior to Pramathanath Bose, saying that Indians are not even able to walk in the field of science. How can we expect them to run? And Pramathanath Bose resigned. Within no time, almost within 1 month, the then Chief Secretary of Mayurbhanj Princely State, he brought Pramathanath Bose as their chief geologist. He came to Jamshedpur, which is Jamshedpur today. It was Sakshi, I think, at that time. He found that there is an immense amount of iron ore in Sakshi. He wrote to Tata, Jamshedji Tata, saying that I understand you are going to establish a steel industrial plant. And Tata was planning to establish it in Chota Nagpur, because there were some deposits of iron ore. Pramathanath Bose wrote to Tata saying that you will have no dearth of iron ore in the foreseeable future if you establish your plant in Sakshi. Jamshedji Tata came here, and the rest is history. They did their own inquiries and established Tata Iron and Steel Company in Jamshedpur. And the place itself then came to be known as Jamshedpur after Jamshedji Tata. So in a way, what we say is Urvashi Shapam Upakara Pradam. Because the British didn't give a promotion to promote him to the directorship, India got its first steel plant. So there is also the example of Jagdish Chandra Basu, which Jayendra ji always mentioned. In 1884, Jagdish Chandra Basu came from London with a letter by Lord Raleigh, who later on went to win a Nobel Prize, I think in 1904. And he wanted to be a faculty in the Presidency College. The authorities at Presidency College didn't want him to join there. But Lord Ripon was a bit friendly to Indians at that point of time. And probably Lord Raleigh talked to him. And based on his pressure, the Presidency College authorities were bound to give a facultyship to Jagdish Chandra Basu. So there was a system of imperial education system and provincial education system in the government of India education system at that point of time, which meant effectively racism of the color of the skin. Only the white were allowed to be part of the imperial education system, and us Indians were never having an opportunity to be part of that, even though they are equally or more qualified, but only in the provincial educational system. What was the difference? For the same post, imperial education system will get 1,000 rupees, suppose. The provincial education system, that faculty will get 300 rupees. And the presidency college authorities told Jagdish Chandra Basu, since they think that Indians cannot do meticulously do the work of science, they will provide Jagdish Chandra Basu only 1/3 of the what is given to provincial educational system. That will be, if it is 1,000, he will get only 100 rupees. From 1884 to 1887, Jagdish Chandra Basu protested, saying that I will teach at Presidency College without taking a single rupee. He taught for 3 years. Just imagine a young graduate or postgraduate. He came back to India, a young faculty. He has his own expenses. Without taking a single rupee, he is teaching there for 3 years. Finally, the British had to give up. They paid him with retrospective effect the full salary, along with taking away the system of provincial educational system and imperial educational system. In a way, that was probably the first satyagraha in our country, because Gandhiji did his satyagraha in 1917. The definition of satyagraha is something like a resolute action through non-violent means for achieving truth. So, without any violence, without any murmur, with his resolute action, Jagdish Chandra Basu achieved a truthful result. Unfortunately, how many of our students of science, or even faculties or research scholars, or in the whole ecosystem, how many of us know this story? Now, just now, Arunji talked about, I was very happy when he described that effort that 2 days back there, Raman spectroscopy has arrived coming from an Indian lab. Because India was sanctioned in the aftermath of the nuclear test in 1998. And one of the items that was coming in the sanction was this one, Raman spectroscopy. So can we imagine that C.V. Raman in 1928 developed this, this thing, and India is being sanctioned and we are dependent on other countries for this very thing. And it has now taken almost 100 years that we have crossed the walls from IACS to IICB. Why this is happening? There is a story, by very favorite story of Swami Vivekananda. There was a pregnant lioness, fully pregnant. She was running after some prey and it jumped to catch a prey. But because she was fully pregnant, she couldn't actually successfully jump. She fell in a ditch. She was not able to walk and she died. But before that, she gave birth to the cub. And after that, this cub was going here and there. Some sheep came and this cub, they were very generous to this cub. They took him along with them. And the sheep was exposed to whatever, the cub was exposed to whatever the sheep are doing. So instead of roaring, it was producing sounds of the sheep. It was only eating whatever the sheep is eating. Like that, it grew up. It grew up in size because, of course, it is a lion. it was having all the features of the lion, but it was not having any characteristics of the lion. It was having all the characteristics of the sheep. And one day, there was another lion which came there, which actually was trying to catch some sheep for its prey. Then it saw that there is a lion among these sheep, and it is behaving exactly as a sheep. It was very angry. It caught hold of this lion, which was acting like sheep, and this lion was very, very scared. It just wanted to run away somehow. The original lion, the lion with the lion characteristics, it tried to explain to the other lion, see, you are amongst us, you have to be here and not there. Why you are going with the sheep? It was not ready to accept it. Then this lion took him to a water body, showed it to him, and asked him, do you look like them or do you look like me? So finally he was a bit in half mind. Because I am looking like him only. Then he started roaring and asked him to roar. Finally, the lion, which was acting like a sheep, it started roaring, and it attained its original characteristics. Unfortunately, what has happened is India, during the 190 years of the British rule, they not just had political power on it, they tried to erase our identity. And to a large extent, they were successful also. That is why when this Raman spectroscopy, there is a question that our own person has made it. Why don't we buy it? We don't trust our person. That has become a psyche. I know so many other examples. I am not explaining them. Similar thing has happened in many of our scientific institutions. So now this has to change. How it can change? That is when, especially by the efforts of Jayanta Sahasrabuddhe, during this year of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we, Vigyan Bharati, started to, first of all, do a kind of a research into the role of science in our struggle for Swatantrata. A lot of amazing details have come out. It is not that it was all these details were not existent. Just as like I mentioned about Rajesh Kochar, Pritish Nandi, so many people have written papers. There are so many references, but we were not used to, actually we didn't think of, we were thinking like the lion, which was like a sheep, and we were always thinking that Indians have not have much of a contribution. And what was the contribution? Jagdish Chandra Basu, amazing contributions. Now I am just going through a book by Kunal Ghosh from IIT Kanpur. He has brought such a wonderful, deeply researched book on Jagdish Chandra Basu named Unsung Genius. Amazing book. So, so many things that he has quoted authentically. How Jagdish Chandra Basu made epochal changes, and unfortunately, we don't even know that these changes actually originated from Jagdish Chandra Basu. He is talking about one of the only patents that Jagdish Chandra Basu had, because his concept was that Vidya is not for sale; it is for human good. So the only US patent Jagdish Chandra Basu got, it was because of Nivedita, sister Nivedita, and after, just like you said, about 100 years. Only recently, it was found out that it was Jagdish, because of this patent, that it is Jagdish Chandra Basu's contribution. And not just Jagdish Chandra Basu, Prafulla Chandra Rai, Chandrasekhara Venkatraman got the first Asian Nobel Prize in Science. The first non-white Nobel Prize in Science. First Nobel Prize in Science for a person who is not white. And unfortunately, the only Nobel Prize in Science for an Indian. Of course, Indian origin, we know Subramaniam Chandrasekhar, then Venkatesh Ramakrishnan, many others are there. I am not saying that Nobel Prize is not without any other considerations. We have had the experience of ECG Sudarshan, of Jagdish Chandra Basu himself, and so many others. So there is some other considerations also. But even then, this experience is also there. Now, when we are saying Indian Association for Cultivation of Science, because I know that after this Sumati Ramanath, she has brought out one of the only research of that kind on Mahendralal Sarkar. She is expected to talk to us now. So I think that she will be talking in detail about IACS, how Mahendralal, wonderful research paper that she has come out with. So I'm not going into that part. Now, when we are saying Indian Association for Cultivation of Science, what is science? Science is an effort to find out truth. And it has to be objective. A lot of people somebody says that science is classified knowledge and all that. But ultimately, it is a search for truth. So what is the Indian perspective on the search for truth? Ishavasya Upanishad says, Avidyaya mrutyum tirtva vidyaya amrutam ashnute. So there are two components, avidya and vidya. In a very rudimentary way, I can say avidya is probably material science and vidya is spiritual science. And in this context, on the 30th of November, we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Jagdish Chandra Basu. So I will just read through one letter that Jagdish Chandra Basu wrote to Rabindranath Tagore after delivering his Friday evening discourse at the Royal Institution, London, about his research in plant physiology on 10th May 1901. He wrote to Tagore regarding his concluding remarks of that lecture. And he says, he mentions in that, concluding those concluding remarks, I have shown you this evening autographic record of responses of living and non-living. How similar are the writings? How similar are the writings? So similar indeed that you cannot tell one from the other apart. Living and the non-living, the recordings of the responses. How can we draw a demarcation and say, here the physical process ends and there the physiological begins? No such barriers exist. Do not the two sets of records tell us of some property of matter common and persistent? Do they not show us that the responsive processes seen in life have been foreshadowed in non-life? That physiological is, after all, but an expression of physics, physico-chemical, and that there is no abrupt break, but a uniform and continuous march of law. It was when I came upon the mute witness of these self-made records and perceived in them one face of a pervading unity, bears within its all things, the mode that quivers in ripples of light, the teeming life upon earth, and the radiant suns that shine above us. It was then that I understood for the first time a little of that message proclaimed by my ancestors on the banks of the Ganges 30 centuries ago. Then he says, they who see but one in all the changing manifoldness of universe, unto them belongs eternal truth. They who see one in all the changing fullness of the universe, living and non-living. That is my addition. Unto them belongs eternal truth, unto none else, unto none else. And in response to this letter, Tagore writes back on the 4th of June 1901, to Jagdish Chandra Basu, since I have received your letter, I am transported to a new joyous world. I bow to God, who used you as an instrument to uphold the honor of our motherland. I seem visualize the sunlit course by which he, with an H capital, he would bring glory of our beloved country. So he very clearly says that what we perceive as living and non-living, it is not two, it is but a part of a continuum. Now, in Shankaracharya, in his Manisha Panchakam, it was said when Shankaracharya was going to Kashi with his disciples and comes across a Chandala with his dogs and everything with very torn dress and everything. Then somebody says, Gacha, Gacha, move away, move away. Then the Chandala, actually he is not Chandala. So Chandala asks, Kim bruhi Gacha Gacheti. What are you telling Gacha, Gacha, move? Whether it is the Dehi or the Deha, whether it is the body or the me within it. Then Shankaracharya says these 5 verses, Manisha Panchakam. It starts with Jagrat Swapna Sushupti Sputataram Samvrid Ujrimbate. That is, in Jagrat, in our wakefulness, Swapna Sushupti, that is in dream and in deep sleep, that which reflects that thing. And Brahmadi Pipilikanta Tanushu Prata Jagat Sakshini, that is Brahma from the creator to Pipilika, the ant, the Prata that reflects Jagat Sakshini, the universal witness, and it is actually a woman, it is Sakshini. Saivaham, that itself, the third sentence is, which means that is the truth and not this visual, this thing, universe. Who knows that? Whether he is a Chandala or anybody, he is my teacher. That is the verse in first verse of the Manisha Panchakam. And this same message of unity is proven by Jagdish Chandra Basu and responded to by Rabindranath Tagore. That is the philosophy of Indian science, the fundamental unity among all things. Today we are going into quantum mechanics, the structure of this thing and all those things. So science is a bit coming to that. And Swami Vivekananda met Tesla during that World Conference on Religion with the hope. He wrote to his friend saying that he will give a mathematical expression for the concept of Vedanta. Actually, that didn't happen with Tesla, but then Einstein came when he gave that E is equal to mc square. But by that time, Swamiji had already passed away. So today we are again, the science is at a crossroads. Unfortunately, in our past 75 years, we have not been able to build upon the foundations that were laid by people like Jagdish Chandra Basu and Prafulla Chandra Rai. So our idea of having this along with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, because when we had many of these programs on contribution of Indian scientists as part of the struggle for Swatantrata, Ministry of Culture suggested that we have a series of programs on some of the most prominent Indian scientists who actually did their science as an expression of national pride and to prove to the world and especially the British that we are equally or more capable, and succeeded with world-class research, results. People like Prafulla Chandra Rai, Jagdish Chandra Basu, Satyendra Nath Basu, Meghnad Saha, a long list of them. So this event is also being organized as part of that. And I am extremely glad to be having able to visit this IACS, because we have been mentioning for the past 1 year about the story of how Mahendralal Sarkar, as Tapas Das said, how he got the support of so many Indians and had this established this institution at a time when we had a very hostile political authority which didn't want to show that it is hostile. It may be acting as a benign one, but it was through and through thinking of how to rob this country. With just one statistic, I will conclude. That is, in 1757, when the British were coming to Bengal province, Indian contribution to the global GDP was something like nearly 20 to 25%. In 1947, when they were leaving, our contribution to global GDP was less than 4%. And there is a curve by Angus Madison. You can refer that. You can just Google it, Angus Madison. And he shows how the economy of the British from 1757 to 1947, it went up like this, and how the economy of India from here to here, it came down. And actually it is an X curve, Indian economy and the British economy. So that they achieved by using the science as a tool. And unfortunately, that mentality has still carried on. That is why our Honorable Prime Minister has now been giving a call of decolonization. A time is actually not reached. It is long overdue for the decolonization of the Indian mind. And one of the biggest, what we call Gad, bastion of that colonized mind, unfortunately, is the Indian scientific ecosystem. With one small experience, I will conclude, because recently there was a call for having MBBS in Hindi. So in our college group, one person whose daughter is an MBBS student, he said, now what, क्या बर्बादी करने वाले हैं, अभी हिंदी में क्या बोलेंगे ये, सर्जन बोलेगा क्या चाकू लाओ. So I told them the experience of Sankrant Sanu, who was a team leader of Microsoft. He was working, he was stationed in US, and he was working with so many groups all over the world. He was working with a team in Israel for 3 years. Then one day he thought that I will just visit them. That unit was in Haifa University. He went there and he was shocked because the whole coding was being done in Hebrew. Whenever it is needed, they were just translating it into English. And then he went on to do some research, and he could find that the maximum number of Nobels in science proportionate to the population has been achieved by Israel, by Japan, by Germany, by maybe these days China. And none of them have an English penetration as we do. Because language has something to do with original thinking. Unfortunately, we are burdened with the language learning, and that way our original thinking is getting affected during our childhood itself. बच्चा तो घर में अपनी भाषा बोलते हैं, पर स्कूल में गया तो उसे अंग्रेजी में ही साइंस पढ़ना है. Why don't we? Actually, Jagdish Chandra Basu and all have taken so much of effort in teaching in Bengali. He himself was taught. Kunal Ghosh book shows so beautifully what were the factors which actually were catalyzing him to become this kind of an innovator. And learning in mother tongue was one of the important factors. We are not against teaching English, but why is it that mathematics, chemistry, biology, and all other subjects have to be taught in English instead of just having English as a language and teach English very well? But why don't we teach other subjects in their own language? That is what the new education policy is trying to achieve. But it will need call for a huge amount of paradigm shift in the way we are thinking, in our mindset. We will have to decolonize to believe that without English, learning of science is possible. So let us strive for a new revolution. Mahendralal Sarkar started it off with so many odds. Today, the situation is totally different. There are so many helping, a positive atmosphere everywhere. So let us, each of us, let us do our bit. Maybe somebody can write in Bengali 1 or 2 articles in a year. That itself will make such a big contribution. Let us also learn about this effort by Indian scientists in the struggle for Swatantrata. Vibha has started it, but Vibha is not the owner of it. It is a national endeavor. Let us all come together and achieve that national endeavor. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the mesmerizing speech. And history came alive with your excerpts from Panchatantra and other stories. And now, definitely, time to time, we realize how lucky we are because of the sacrifice and hard work that these visionary people have put forward to make our freedom for science, scientific